And we are live. Welcome to the Listen to This Bull live show. My name is Matt Mulholland, and this is the show where you can ask live questions just by putting it into the comments wherever it is that you're watching this, and we'll answer it. I'll answer anything. I'll tell you my shirt size. I'll tell you how much back hair I have. Let's not get into that conversation, though. Generally, we talk about bullshit in the insurance world. If you have a question about that, that's usually preferable to really anything. So, Marquis is here. And now we can get started, I guess. All right. Let me hit this button. Oh, lost the button. There it is. So today we are talking about scaling as a PA firm, what kind of shit you need to avoid so you don't fail miserably like so many have done in the past. And to help me with this conversation is Cole Kline with Hope Public Adjusters. I'm going to bring him on right now. Cole, this is where I'm supposed to pretend that we haven't been talking for the last 15 minutes and say, hey, how are you?
Hey, Matt. Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on the show, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
It's like there was a script. That was the exact obligatory thing that you're supposed to say back to that. So perfect. We nailed it. First try. All right. So tell me a little bit about Hope Public Adjusters to give a synopsis to the audience to qualify you as someone that can talk about this, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So Hope Public Adjusters is just into their 7th year of business. And I started this as a side hustle. I was a roofing contractor, born and bred. And so that's where I came from, roof siding, gutters, interior remodels. And I actually got a PA license because I had a buddy in Illinois who had a PA license. And I didn't really know what it was. It was kind of mystical and foreign. And to me, I kind of thought it was like, well, it's kind of like supplementing. So, kind of figured out. So I got a PA.
Were you doing supplementing before that then?
Somewhat on my own claims.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I had taken like Becca Switzer's course through Sales Mastery, and freaking awesome. I'd recommend it to everybody. And then I'm waiting on my commission check from Becca. But no, I started out in roofing and started this as a side hustle. I was actually, when I became a PA, I was working for Hancock Claims, and I was with them for like 2.5 years. And that's actually
Hancock
when I got
Claims. Is that the same as the ladder assist company? Is it?
Yeah, same thing.
Claims is the second word in the name of Hancock. I didn't know that.
Hancock Claims, ladder assist.
You were one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so that was like going to college for me. And that's when I started to ask questions of, why does this adjuster tell you need 8 hits in a square? And then you meet the adjuster later in the day and he tells you need 13 hits in a square for him to buy the roof. And then you meet another adjuster and he tells you something different. So, but I got a PA license and I was taking on claims for carriers that Hancock actually didn't have contracts with. So there was no conflict. And I got a little greedy. And at the time I signed a claim that I thought was big. It was ended to be like a $26,000 claim. And so
the pretty big when you're with Hancock, I guess, because most of their claims are like 5,000 because they don't approve shit.
Yeah, I mean So I mean, I started out on pretty anything and everything I could take, and I was only taking like one carrier's claims. So it was just a side hustle in the wintertime when stuff would get a little slow. And so took on a claim for a carrier we did have a contract with, thinking, oh, there's thousands of adjusters. This dude's not going to know me. And it turns out he did know me. And then I got let go from Hancock the next day. And, well, I guess I'm a PA now. So I went back.
They just fired you because of that?
Yeah. So I later learned, that you can't be a representative of an insurance supplier and a public adjuster in the same state. So
was that an internal Hancock rule, or that was in that state? Was that a rule in that state?
Yeah, Indiana state statute. So I got a call from the second in command, really great guy at Hancock, and I actually worked for some really great. My favorite boss I've ever worked for was a Hancock regional manager.
Yeah.
And this actually really helped me in claims.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My best field adjuster at All Good actually was one of the original 6 employees of Hancock, and he was the best climber I've ever met. His name was Zach Gwynn. I still recommend people to use him because he's got his own PA firm after I sold All Good. But yeah, I like to give shit to Hancock just because a lot of them are my friends, and we got along very well.
Yeah.
So I'm just teasing Hancock more than
so
anything.
being a Hancock guy, and I hear a lot of complaints from others in the industry of, Hancock denies everything that they get out on. But it gave me a really good insight to working with those guys and the skill set and knowledge base that they have, and how they're making decisions and like what's driving that. So it really helped us with claims, especially on, when we were working a lot of residential property claims in the beginning. So started as a side hustle, went back to selling roofing until we started to get kind of some traction on, and I say we as me as the sole owner operator doing everything, started to get some traction with claims. And once I landed my first commercial claim, we settled that, and I stopped doing roofing at that time. It was just full in on public adjusting, and then we've grown and grown. And 6 years later, 7 years later, here we are. So we're currently operating in 27 states, kind of, sort of. We work pretty heavy in about 16, 17 states. And so that's what we maintain. And then we kind of cherry pick here, there. We get, we're licensed in these states. We might get one claim, every now and then, as we to get heavier.
So like most PA firms that are expanding in other states, do you wait until you get a claim in that state before you bother getting a license there?
So sometimes, anymore, yeah, that's pretty much the case. Right away. So actually, Hope Public Adjusters used to be called Public Adjuster Indiana, is what we started out as. And then we started to get claims in Illinois, and Public Adjuster Indiana didn't sound good in Illinois.
No, I bet not. I bet they were very confused by that name.
Yeah, and our branding was a lot more aggressive.
But if you had a hat like this on your logo, though, it would have made a lot of sense.
Yeah, in hindsight, I probably wouldn't have had to change.
It's an Indiana Jones reference. It's fine. Illinois, it's cool.
Yeah, so it would have worked out for us, but we took a different approach, and
we whipped the insurance companies.
Yeah, that actually might be a really good firm. If anybody's listening and starting a PA firm.
Perfect. Yeah,
you
marketing genius.
Might trademark that.
Real quick, did you know that Hancock has a TPA? How can Hancock have a third-party administrator? Are they a TPA? Is that what you mean? That doesn't make sense.
So everybody's a 1099 for Hancock. They're not W-2 employees, but I don't know. My experience with Hancock is just ladder assist and photo reports. I've heard that they're starting to put out like estimates, and Seek Now is doing the same thing. Starting to put out estimates, but you
ever been to their websites and looked at the advertising they have to carriers to gain information? They do specify on those websites often. I don't know if they still do, but the last time I looked, it basically is describing adjusting a claim, even though they're not adjusters. They're saying we will identify the amount of damages and all these kind of things. So either they're adjusting and they're unlicensed adjusters, or maybe they're practicing the unlicensed practice of forensic engineering. Up fee.
Yeah, I actually didn't think. So we've met a lot of, and I'm still buddies with some Hancock guys. It's completely different since I was there. I know that the regional manager in my area, he was actually part of the team when I was at Hancock. And in my experience with working with them, a lot of them don't actually know what they're doing wrong. It's they are
that's true for most.
Yeah,
that's true for almost every company that is hired by a carrier. They don't know that they're causing some headaches. Engineers have no idea most of the time that the statements that they make that seem inconsequential have some major consequences for the policyholder. And they don't realize it because they don't know what the outcomes are or how it's utilized. So, but that's very true. They don't know. So anyway, keep going.
Yeah, but funny story about that. We were on a commercial project and we met Hancock out there, and we take the approach of the education to Hancock of, I was actually a Hancock guy, and it's really great what you guys do. But I learned a lot, afterwards. And anyways, we tried to take the, why is that not hail damage, or why is that not considered damage under the policy? And this is what the policy actually says, and why this would be considered damage. So anyways, we were on a commercial project and we took that approach and completely over the guy's head, but it's nice as can be. And he started chalking everything up. And so his regional manager showed up that day just to kind of check on him. And I knew the guy. And he's like, man, why are you marking all this? And he's like, oh, Cole explained it to me. It's a commercial policy. It's different on here. Like damage is different from a commercial policy anyways, completely over his head. But it worked out well. And yeah, it was
Yeah,
legit.
I mean, it sounds like good bullshit one way or the other, right?
Yeah.
Every policy is different. I have attempted to bring policies out onto the site with ladder assist and actually show them different sections. Of course, you can't show them the definition of damage because it doesn't exist. But when they're looking for something very specific, it says, well, this is what I've been told I'm supposed to say is damage, and anything else isn't. That doesn't really make any sense, obviously. So there's nothing in the policy to really show them for that kind of a thing. But you can explain to them, it just says direct physical loss. Here's some case law I've printed out that talks about direct physical loss. All I really want you to do is identify this. And if you have to specify it's cosmetic damage, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
All right. That's fine with me. But the only thing that they seem to be telling you to identify is functional damage, the way that Hague defines that specifically, because it's defined by many different places. It's slightly different. In fact, Hague defines it slightly differently in many different places. It's kind of weird. That's besides the point. I talk about Hague too much.
Yeah, they actually have webinars. Them and Donan put on webinars, and they're actually.
I definitely attend those. Those are very informative.
Yeah.
I attended a Donan webinar recently on how to interpret weather data. An engineer taught it. It wasn't a meteorologist. An engineer at Donan was teaching how to interpret weather data.
That's nice.
I thought it was interesting. Definitely outside of a forensic engineer's normal competency, which would be something that they're not allowed to make any opinion statement on. But this guy was teaching people how to do that. So very interesting. That's Donan.
Yeah, we have we've done a lot with weather data, actually, that you bring that up, and it's kind of all over the place on Convo, but we've done a lot with weather data, and we've tried different tools. So we actually watched there was another firm that put on a webinar for commercial roof systems and weather data reporting. And we took a lot from that. And so we started to utilize different. So we anytime that we have a commercial loss, we'll pull 3 reports to verify. So we'll pull like Hail Trace, and those guys are awesome. And we use that all the time. And then we'll pull other sources like NOAA, and then one other before we can confirm that, okay, well, this makes sense.
What's the other one? Do you remember the name? Just curious, like CoreLogic or Benchmark or something along those lines.
No, we've used Hail Strike, which is one. And then there's, it's changed a little bit. We like Hail Strike. I actually like that quite a bit. It's about as consistent as the rest of the storm reports, which is why which is why we use 3. We have had really good luck with forensic weather reports. So there's like weatherconsultants.com. I don't know if you've been, but really great guys. And they're forensic weather consultants. Really,
there's several guys that have that particular designation, which isn't an actual designation. They're just calling themselves that because they're looking through history of weather, I guess. Anyway, keep going.
We've had good success with them on feeling really confident that our storm dates are accurate, or getting called out because we put so much work into a claim, and then we end up, retaining these guys, and they're like, "Oh man, you called it wrong,"
No.
Yeah. And but they're really helpful, and those guys have some credentials that it's especially when you're on the learning curve of which is why we verify with 3 now instead of 1. Yeah.
If you've got 3 different reports and one of them shows that there was no hail and the other 2 show that there is hail, is that good enough for you to move forward, or are you looking for all 3 to agree with each other since you're getting 3?
It depends on other data. So we've been through so many reports, which a lot of other public adjusters can probably relate to this. So from our on-site inspection, if there's actually hail damage, there's damage that you can find with the fins of the condenser units. You have recent spatter, and that you got the clues, right? If it makes sense and you have 2 reports, then yeah, I would say absolutely. If it's something that maybe you don't have indicators on the roof, you have the maybe they're just not accessories on the roof, but you have 3 reports that are legitimate. You do have hail on the on the roof, or even less reports, then it just depends case by case. But we always look for those indicators to substantiate if we can't find 3 reports. So
I think that's important, regardless whether you only got 1 report or not, to substantiate that with what it is that you see on site. Most of the time, the weather is measured at altitude, and it still has to fall from that altitude. And it's not falling straight down; it's going to be moving. So you have to identify what it is you see on site and try to correlate with that with whether or not you believe that weather event was capable of producing a loss at that site on that date, not necessarily what was reported or measured or anything, because all of that data often is extrapolated from specific data points with an algorithm, which is different for every source. And it's all wildly inaccurate in many different ways. But
yeah,
here's a question from Derek O'Day. What is the typical cost for a weather forensics report?
That's a really great question. So we pay anywhere from $1,200 to like $1,500 for a report for the forensics, and that's what we're.
I mean, that's great for a commercial loss all day. Would you do that for a residential claim, a small roof claim? I guess.
No, not a small roof claim. We would not. Yeah,
doesn't make sense to do it at that point. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, especially if you're getting like 2.5% on the first 20,000 or something like that.
If it's a residential loss and financially it makes sense, we may consider that. And state specific, like you're talking about with how fees are being distributed. But if it's something that an insured really believes, that they sometimes will ask, hey, we can get this report. If you guys want to foot the bill, then good to go. But the $1,200 to $1,500, that's pretty standard, I would say.
Yeah.
In our experience, yeah.
Typically, you pay for the weather report, not the insured, or do you charge the insured?
It depends on the size of the loss. On some losses, we are willing to eat the fee and kind of call it a cost of doing business in order to pursue the loss. On some losses, depending on the size, we're not, and we'll communicate that with the insured. A practice that we actually started doing is anytime that we do discuss fees with an insured, we always have them sign off on it. So we'll send something to them saying, hey, we agree to pay these, third-party fees for this vendor in this window of amount. And so that's a practice we actually just recently put into place. But
I think it's very cool. We did the same thing at All Good after we got burned too many times. And we have audio recording of all the phone calls that we've had where we talked to the policyholder, but they would claim that they never had this conversation. We'd have to send them audio feeds. But having something in writing that they signed off on made that a lot easier. We didn't have to go back and listen to these recordings and then send them. We would spend hours just proving to an insured that we did talk to them about something. Having a document like that is going to take you 30 seconds really to click through and send out makes a huge difference especially with volume. You don't have time for 2 hours of arguing with a policyholder when you've spent the last 4 hours arguing with their insurance company before that.
Yeah, we had we had a loss with an insured that it was a fire loss, that it wasn't actually a weather report, but a industrial hygienist. And they sent off testing, and the insured actually asked him to expedite the testing, and the fees with that just weren't discussed. And it came back really high. He was like $150 upcharge per sample that he sent off. And the insured was already kind of in a bad situation. It was a small loss. It's a bad situation. So we ended up eating her fee. We didn't really want to, but we ended up taking care of that just because of the situation that she was in. So this was a way not really to hold insureds accountable, but to hold vendors accountable. So it was a way, especially with having different adjusters on our team, to require the fees to be discussed. It's just a topic for discussion.
I never had that issue. That's very smart. Send that to that nickel and diming vendor that really should have said those things up front. Was there a contract from that vendor?
No. And we had worked with this guy quite a bit, and nothing egregious on his end. It was just an oversight. But us implementing these forms basically forced the conversation. So before anybody on our team can give the approval to have a vendor out, they have to discuss the fees now. And then we have that communication. So.
Okay. So Brian mentions that weatherguidance.com can get forensic weather reports for a few $100. If anybody in the audience that's listening to this has ever used weatherguidance.com, he's looking to find out if they're any good or not. So post something in the commentary if you used them before. Let us know if you think they're up to snuff. All right, let's try to get back up on topic. So we're talking about scaling. You have moved into 27 states as a company. There are plenty of PA firms that have tried to scale, all right, and failed miserably, overextended, grew too fast, way too much overhead involved. What is it that you're doing differently, you think, that makes this work for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. So one of the hardest things that we overcame as a firm was getting myself out of more or less what I would call like the director of claims seat. So just like everybody else, it was really difficult. Yeah, one of the most difficult things that we've done is implement a director of claims into getting over that hurdle was really difficult.
You want to be helpful, right? You want to be involved as much as you can. I was the main field guy for my company. If it was a tough field claim, it was me that was assigned. I met with all the engineers, unless we had multiple engineer visits, and then we put Zach, the guy I was talking about earlier. But getting yourself out of the minutia of the day-to-day is one of the toughest things ever. I kept saying that I had too many hats on. I just needed to get rid of a few hats. But anytime I found that something needed to be done, it was faster for me to just do it than to stop and train someone to do it. So the fact that you did that, I think that is a very important thing that most PA firms don't do. So this is a big tip. Stop working the claims.
Yeah, so we had a lot of trouble doing that. So I started out with my first employee that I hired.
While we're talking about this, I don't want to come back to it. Can you describe what a director of claims is? What do they do?
Yeah, absolutely. So through growth, the role looks different. So when I had my first employee, and I will get to describing our director of claims now and his role and duties and what that looks like. And we actually have a claims coach also that does not work claims, and he is a support member for the rest of our adjusters. So
coach.
Yep. So when I hired my first guy, my first adjuster, we just worked claims hand in hand. So we would have separate claims, and then we'd have issues that we would bring back and forth to each other. And then I had my second adjuster that I brought on, and went pretty well. My time was getting spread, just working of trying to help this guy, and then work my claims. So we implemented what we called mastermind meetings. So every Friday we went through every single claim and made sure that the CRM notes were up to date with final suit limitation, amount of time to recover depreciation, proof of loss due dates, ALE, limitation dates. We work a lot of fires. Making sure all those are up to date, making sure that all of our tasks were set. Basically, it's just setting direction, setting tasks. We're not actually working on claims. These are the things we need to accomplish. This is what we need to do. And every single Friday, we went through every single one, and we still do that. It's just not me in those meetings. So then we brought on another guy, and I was able to stop working so many claims, but still had a few, and so on and so forth. We, kept hiring. We implemented what we called at first a claims manager, and that person was working claims, but would also assist others. And then I was pretty much just doing masterminds and kind of oversight. And we found that was really difficult. That guy was getting spread way too thin, had a hard time focusing on his claims directly. So we started to pass off his claims, which the passing off of claims is really hard. And we were a young company. We're still a young company, but we didn't have as much in place at that time. And we were still learning the person to hire, or our ideal candidate profile for the public adjusting role. And then we also didn't offer as much support as we do now, company benefits, 401k, health insurance, all of these tools that we have in place. So we had a little bit of turnover, and if one person left, it became really, really difficult because they would have 35, 40 files open, and they get spread to everybody. So our director of claims that was trying to work these files would basically get pulled back in. And this happened for a couple of cycles. And then eventually we came to the point where we hired somebody, and they had to come in pretty much knowing what they were doing. This is when we started to coin, we're only going to hire gold medalists. So not somebody that can potentially be a gold medalist, but that has already won a gold medal. So what we mean by that is they've already earned their stripes. They have 3 years minimum of experience adjusting claims and negotiating with either contractors at a really high level or adjusters at a really high level. And we've actually, as a firm, had really good luck hiring really insurance adjusters and pulling them from the insurance company side of the fence onto this side.
Would you call them gold medalists if they've never been a PA, but they were an IA?
Yeah, so I only have one guy at our firm that was a PA prior to joining our company. Gold
medals to you is someone with claims experience, but not necessarily as a public adjuster. Mm-hmm. Actually, I think that's an important distinction, because a lot of companies have found that if you hire a public adjuster from another firm or a one-man show, they come with a lot of bad habits a lot of times. And more often than not, a PA firm will learn that it's better to hire and train them yourself than to hire someone that's got these bad habits or attitudes, or they're too aggressive or something along those lines, which doesn't really fit your perception in the marketplace. I've had that issue every time I've hired someone that was already a PA. More often than not, it's an aggression issue. They're dicks to the insurance company. And our number one rule is don't be a dick, right? So I've had that issue. So if you're getting it from the carrier side, though, so they've had claims handling experience, but you're just having to train them how to adapt that to become a public adjuster, that's actually a good way to go about it. And there are plenty of those right now that want to come from that side and just want to make sure that they have a secure income to do so.
Yeah,
are these 1099?
So all of our employees are W-2.
Nice.
Yep.
That's the way we did it too.
Yep. So there's a dynamic when bringing over somebody from the insurance claims side. They have bad habits as well, but I related to it really well from being a Hancock claims consultant. And it was kind of the awakening of learning something, and you're like, oh, wow, I did this wrong on a lot of roofs, right? Or I said this wasn't damage on a lot of roofs. When you're learning policy and what is actually damage. And so it's asking why. in kind of training your team to, well, like, why are you saying that? And I love the Steve Patrick approach. And that guy, just, I've been to a couple of his class. He's amazing.
Why?
Yeah.
Bunch of whys.
Bunch
Yeah,
of whys.
Steve
Yep.
does like you to ask questions, which is good. That's how you control a conversation. Just
Yep.
ask a lot of questions.
So
And they can be simple questions, but the why question gets people thinking about why. When you're teaching somebody why something is, you really have to stop and address in your own mind why something is. So it is a very powerful question. As long as they're talking to you. If you're a dick to them, they're not going to answer it. So don't be a dick again. Brandon asked a good question. What's your pitch to an adjuster to come be a PA that's already an IA? What's the pull for them?
yeah, absolutely. So it's been different for different guys that have joined our team. So we offer, I got a COO that works for us, a chief operating officer, and her name's Sam, and she is biggest asset to our company. She came in and really helped us. The first thing she did within the first couple months is get health insurance, 401k. We have like just a lot more structure around that now. So all of our employees have free health insurance. They pay the deductible, but we take care of the premium essentially. Then for any of their families on them. So getting essentially what I would call some of these like captive tools, and they're tools, but they offer significant benefit to employees. That's a big was huge for us, and really.
We maintained our staff once we had health insurance paid for at Allgood, and we did the same thing. We took care full cost on all their family members as well. People, you'd be surprised what people will do to keep their job because they want to keep their health insurance. They would take a significantly lower pay even to have health insurance paid for them. It's crazy. It doesn't make sense financially in reality sometimes, but it is important to people. So
when we approach an adjuster, it's somebody that's aligned with our values, that we like working with, right? And that we feel is a pretty intelligent guy. We basically have to like working with them. And they're all guys that we've worked with in the past. And so
what do you mean worked with in the past? Meaning you've met them out on claims in the past?
Yeah, so one of my guys, we actually have worked water and fire claims with him, and in the process of working those, we started to plant seeds essentially of, man, you ever think about this one actually happened at perfect timing because it was right, it was kind of like during COVID, and so we had asked like, man, you ever thought about hopping the fence, being on this side? And at that time, AmFam was purchasing a home site, and they had sent messages out to their adjusters that they were requiring everybody to get vaccines. So this particular guy was like, "See ya."
Yeah.
And it was a good time. So for us, we also really interview them, but we also let them interview us. So we are completely open. And we let them come in and kind of see our systems and our processes. And here's our CRM. I think that a lot of adjusters work with a lot of public adjusters, and they see that some of these guys are, everybody's different and starts at different places, but maybe not as put together. It might be one guy and a hat that's wearing a lot of different, he's doing everything. Solo. And so we really try to show that we're a systemized and well put together and established company, because a lot of these guys have families, and they don't want to hop the ship to show that.
So you might be enticing them with more time with family then. A lot of these guys are overloaded as it is, but if you're showing them that they have a team to work with and they don't have to do everything on themselves, they don't have to bolster it all on their own shoulders. They might be able to go home at a decent hour and spend time with their family. I think that is a very important distinction.
We don't entice them. We promise them they won't work weekends. And so our team is off we have some guys that'll hustle and will work past 5, but like 6:30, 7, our whole team's done. And on the weekends, like they're not working. And that's really intentional.
Yeah.
We do have guys that just like love it. And like, you will hear from them at like 8:30 and you'll tell them like, dude, please take a vacation. And you know, it's good. But, so that's a big thing, is like the work-life balance. And we've got that figured out. And also none of our adjusters are salesmen. Nobody generates their own work. It's all provided by the company. So we generate, for our adjusters, and the skill sets are different. So we're not looking for salesmen. We want adjusters to adjust large claims. And that's the skill set that we teach. And then we have a separate team that is claims acquisition.
So you have a whole sales team then, basically, or a marketing team more than anything.
Yeah, marketing sales.
I'm really surprised by how similar our two companies have been set up so far. I haven't seen a difference yet, other than the fact that you got yourself out of working. What was the best hire that you made? What position was the most impactful for you?
Yeah, it's a really great question. Every employee for us has a role, but definitely the most impactful was our COO, Sam.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, and she runs Hope Public Adjusters, just inside and out. So we're tiered though, so her role wouldn't be possible without a really great director of claims, and our director of claims is, you know, amazing. And I said we had a claims coach, which is something newer that we've implemented to our adjusters. Everybody needs developed. So we kind of live by, if you're not growing, you're dying. And we really believe that for every role. So
you're not first or last kind of a thing. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So this guy's role is to develop our contents team, and our contents team, our adjusters, and our field inspection team. And then he's basically coaching them on better claims position, or like organization, writing. We call
was
him.
that someone that had a lot of experience as a PA before you, or you trained this person, claims coach?
Yeah, this is actually a guy that came from the insurance. He was an adjuster with an insurance company, and he's been with us for a while, and we've had a lot of guys in this role, and our director of claims is very good at accountability. And the guy that we have in our claims coach role he just has a personality to kind of develop people. I guess he's got a really caring guy. You could tell he loves what he does. He puts a lot of care into his work, but he also cares about people. One thing that we implemented as a firm, we use a program called Teaming. I think it's teaming.io. I could be wrong there, but Teaming. And Teaming this is actually eye-opening for me. I like to go through life thinking that everybody's exactly like me and like thinks the way that I do. And if you don't, then like you need to like work harder, you know?
That's arrogance. That's what that's called. Yeah.
Come on, keep up.
Yeah, I used to think that I needed to hire some clones of myself, and that's how I would get out of my position. But that's a ridiculous thing to do. You can't find someone like you. You can't find someone that does the way that you do it, or the things the way that you do. They don't exist. So for me, I had to find someone that could fill this role. That was something that I did, and I had to find someone that did this, and maybe even slightly differently, but they could fit that role in some way. And it always surprised me when I had desk adjusters that would do better on the phones instead of emails, and desk adjusters do better on the emails and the phones. And it wasn't a one size fits all. Everybody was the same way. It's always better this way. It depends on where your strengths are. So you don't have to find you or a clone of you, like I used to think, which was arrogance on my part too. Yeah, so,
there's a saying that you don't want to be the brain with 1,000 hands. And
that's great. Yeah. That would be creepy as hell too. You don't want to be that. No, you'd never get any women. Yeah.
So I lost my train there, but yeah. But Matt,
anyways, was Sam a PA before, or did you hire this person who was a COO before somewhere else?
She was not a COO. She was at another company. Actually, this is a really cool story. So Sam was a CFO at another company, and they did like underground fiber. I honestly don't know much about that. They bored underground and did fiber, and so she was CFO for that company, and I knew Sam. I knew she was really smart, and I'd only met her probably like 2 or 3 times. It was through one of a friend that I went to high school with, and it was his wife. And I'd met her a few times, and just insanely smart. So I had actually asked her to come and audit my business, and just like take a day, I'll pay you. I just anything you can tell me that'll help me improve would be really great. And she did. And so I got to spend maybe 2-3 hours with her. And at this time in business, I was kind of thinking to myself, like, man, I couldn't afford somebody at this caliber, like kind of above my league of business that I was in. And so me being the impatient person that I am, I waited 2 days, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to throw it out there. And I think I had watched like a Grant Cardone video that just like make crazy offers. And it was something he was talking about with real estate. And I was like, this is super relatable. So I sent a message to her, and basically was like, hey, what would it take to get you on my team? Throw me a number. And she did. And I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it actually. And I was like, done. Like, when can you start?
I'm a baller. It's fine.
So, I thoroughly
just audited everything, and you know exactly where I stand. So if you think I could do it, great, let's do it.
Yeah, I was kind of like, it was one of those like, oh, like I'll figure it out, you know.
Did you wait until after she did the audit, or sometime in the beginning?
Yeah, so it was after she did the audit. I waited 2 or 3 days, and she said okay. And then so I was already kind of nervous about the money side of it. I was like, well, you know, we'll figure it out. But immediately she came in and just transformed the business. So it was, I mean, there's inflection points in business, I think, where hires can make just trajectory changes. And we've had this happen a few times in business, and it's not with every hire. But there are inflection points that you bring on somebody and they just completely change the trajectory of your business. And we've seen it. So I know that it's real, and it's happened a couple times. So now when we're looking for these roles that are like leadership roles, we're looking for these people that will be inflection points in our business.
I like that. So she's one of those. Do you recruit people to work multiple states?
So all of our, that's a really great question. All of our adjusters are remote, and they didn't used to be that way. So we had adjusters that would also do the inspections, and we had a really hard time expanding because of that. So we changed our model, and we moved, and my guys actually hated this when it first happened. They're like, no, I can't be by my desk all the time. I love going out. I got to be on a roof. Like, I appreciate, you know, being able to work from my computer, but I also like getting out of the house. So that was kind of a hard change, but we shifted. So all of our adjusters don't leave their desk. They just adjust from their desk. And then we implemented a field inspection team. We call it a forensics team because it sounds cooler. So we implemented a field inspection team, and our field inspection team, they're road warriors, and we are really lucky to have these guys. We have one guy that, like, him and his wife travel the country, and they have like a sweet camper van. That's what they go to inspections in, and it works really well for them. They'll stay at like RV parks, and just really like it's almost like a lifestyle for them.
I wonder if this LinkedIn user is that guy.
So the reason we did that is it could be
Might be.
he just hopped on. The reason we did that is we were having a lot of trouble hiring. So for this technical role of adjusters, and we learned that if you hire somebody new, if you take your experience, there's probably a 3-year infancy stage before you like really figure out what you're doing in the industry. And can
3 years,
connect.
you think?
I think it's about
So,
3.
okay. Okay.
So
a rule of 3 for the day.
It's funny. So we changed the way we were hiring because it allowed us to expand where we were hiring. So we can now hire in states that we're not even licensed in or operating in.
Just to get the inspection going. No.
Well, just to get somebody we can hire more adjusters, right? So now we can increase our staff. It doesn't really matter where the inspector's from. The first guy does, because most people are going to be the busiest in their home state. We are. So we found somebody local, and then for our second, it doesn't matter really, because they're going to be traveling a lot, as long as it's like within your, like, we don't do claims in Louisiana, so we probably wouldn't hire somebody from there.
Is it because of the way that PAs get paid there that you don't do it, or a fear of Matthew Monson that you don't do it?
So because we have so many, this is actually my thought process. Because we have so many people, the rules in Louisiana make me nervous as a firm owner, and I don't want the risk.
All you have to do is do what every other PA does that goes in there, and just bill hourly until you hit a theoretical 10% of the claim anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, we weren't a fan of it, so we
just
did.
So you're aware, audience, that is not ethical. Don't do that. That's terrible. Actually, it's an hourly fee. You have to actually track that shit. All right, stop doing the 10% thing. That's just dumb. That's bullshit. Just don't do it.
The water there is just it's too hot to operate in, and that's why we don't.
Oh, that's what it is. It's the humidity.
The humidity. Yeah.
It is an interesting state. I mean, there have been a lot of people that have gotten in trouble for weird things in that state too. So they are definitely they're closed down tight. They want only Louisiana people working in that state too.
You can actually adjust claims there. You can present. You can present.
I mean, it's kind of gray in a weird way, but yeah, no, you're right. So it basically needs an attorney ultimately to finish up, unless it's a really obvious claim and the carrier ends up paying, but you can't really negotiate it.
Yeah.
So
probably. One state we just we're not interested in. So
yeah, you should add Georgia and Wisconsin to that list.
We like Wisconsin.
Terrible.
Yeah.
You like Wisconsin? I learned recently, I've been arguing on this show for years that Georgia is the worst state that licenses public adjusters to work in. And I was wrong. The worst state to work in as a public adjuster is Wisconsin, if you have a license there.
Why do you think
they have the absolute worst laws? They have the same bullshit that Georgia does, that with the appraisal issues. But they don't have some of the benefits that Georgia has to go with it. They don't have anything. There's nothing. That's nothing. They have nothing. And they have 1 year suit limitation period for every kind of claim. Georgia at least have 2 years on fire and lightning. I mean, and there's no APIA there. So it has to be either NAPIA or APIA to handle that. Perfect transition point, but I'm not going to do it. Yeah, I am. No, I'm not. We'll make a separate show out of that. I think that's the way to do it. We'll make a separate show once we get everything together. Anyway, ignore everything I just said, everyone. So yeah, Wisconsin requires a registration rather than a license. It's a certificate or a certificate.
A certificate, yeah, which is fairly new.
Yeah, it is. It is a little bit different, but with that certificate, you get to handle claims in a state that has absolutely no leverage. So
I just want to say real quick, Sarah Parker's picture just popped up. She's on a dirt bike, and it's super, super cool.
Yeah, she was telling me she wanted to sell that dirt bike earlier, so you need to work on it.
Oh, yeah, don't do that.
Scon is cool though. No, not if you have to call the state Scon to make it cool. It's not cool. It's a terrible state.
That's
I'd
awesome.
like to go. I'd like to visit, but you should. I don't know. You guys work there though, don't you?
Wisconsin?
Yeah,
We do.
I pushed
Yeah.
someone towards you guys in Wisconsin about a month ago. Hopefully they reached out. But you operate in Ohio.
We do. And actually, we really like Ohio. Ohio has a really great Unfair Claim Settlement Practices Act. It's pretty lengthy, and it's pretty good. Yeah. So
Yeah, I've always enjoyed the Ohio statutes. I think that there's a lot to be said for that. It's not a high leverage state like Florida, Texas, or Colorado, but it's definitely not a low leverage state like Wisconsin, Georgia. You're somewhere in the middle, but it's in the high middle. So I call them high or low leverage or medium leverage based on the amount of sway that you'd have with an insurance company based on the statutes, the case law, and the policies, the way that they're written in that state. So you have some leverage there as a PA. There was a few questions I want to hit, but while we're talking about different states, I have to know, because this is the hardest thing when you're going across borders. Every state is different, very different on how you would handle a claim, on what the paperwork would be. Proof of loss might have to have specific statutes written on it. Every state is different on the way things are handled. How do you deal with that?
it's a really great question. So we have
We've said that about every question so far.
These are really
Do your
great.
farts stink?
These are. I didn't hear your
I
question.
didn't say at that time.
Yeah.
Damn.
I didn't hear it. Yeah, that is. It was a tough hurdle for us to overcome. We've had a lot of help. Another plug. So we have an attorney that we work with that really helps on contract provisions. Hotlist Offer for any public adjusters that are looking for help on contracts.
There it is. Yeah.
Yep. And
yeah, she's asking if you work with Hotlist Offer.
We do.
Which is,
yeah.
just to plug Hotlist Offer because she deserves it. She's a super sweet woman.
Amazing.
Holly does do contracts for public adjusters. She works specifically for compliance issues with public adjusters. She can help you stay in compliance.
And not just contracts though, but primers. So she's actually put together, they're called primers, but like rules of operating in each state. And she puts out disclaimers that like these don't last forever because the rules in each state change frequently. So update them. And so as we go into each state, we basically reapprise of those. And then we have built out custom Excel sheets. We got some amazing Excel wizards that work at Hope. And so we've worked out some pretty awesome Excel sheets to help track the way we can charge in each state. A lot of them are just on our contract too. So it's pretty easy. Read the contract and figure out how you can charge there. But we have some of them are really specific. So our sheets really help. And then we have a process in place to basically audit all of our contracts annually, which is some legwork that we push over to Holly a lot of the time. So that's how we manage that. And then the primers, they're not everything that you would need to know, but it's a lot of really good information of things to just really be aware of. And then
so she's the primary source of a lot of this information is Hotlist Offer.
Oh yeah.
Digging into all this shit is so frustrating. But there's case law and stuff. Does she keep you up to date on case law and things too that have changed?
So as we do our audits, it doesn't all happen at once because it's a lot, but as we do our audits, she will check and make sure that she is up to date on whatever she sends over to us. And then we just kind of cycle it through our where we have it saved in our Dropbox file. So and then anytime that we get into, we know the states that we work in a lot pretty well. So I mean, eventually you don't like we don't have to look in Ohio and like we know the rules. But these new states that we get into, like Wisconsin or Iowa, Kansas, as we get into, these different operating areas or territories. We do visit those frequently, and who maintains that a lot in our company. So I've got an executive assistant that does a lot of our like keeping up with those items. And then we have an in-house bookkeeper that basically all funds travel through. And she's the one that maintains a lot of like our compliance stuff with.
Do you have to get her permission to spend a lot of money?
more backlash of, yeah.
Let's ask for forgiveness than for permission. I got you.
Yeah, one of those.
Good strategy. You'll never buy anything otherwise. I'm going to put Holly's information up since someone was happy or nice enough to put it up there. And we've talked about her so much. And she's totally worth it. She's fairly expensive per state, but she's totally worth it. She is worth it. And she's the only one that I'm aware of that even does this. So
yeah,
I'm a big fan. She's great.
Yeah.
I got a question that I actually have been holding off. I want to make sure we get to it because we're running out of time. Here we go. What's the compensation structure for a new adjuster?
This is a really great question. Also,
it's always a great question.
I really love this question, actually. This was really difficult for me. When I brought on my first guy, because I was a roofer, I started with a 10-50-50 split, right? Which is 45%. And as we grew, we figured out that wasn't enough to help with overhead. So we changed that to 35% because it was less. And we thought that would help. And then we grew and we got more office staff. So I had to put a lot of thought into it. And I worked on this for probably 8 months before I rolled it out to my team. But we switched to a salary and commission structure. So it looks the same no matter who you are, your skill set coming onto our team. We have a range of within this number and this number for salary. But you'll be a salary employee. And then we have a set commission structure. So our commission structure is based on a percentage of whatever we collect as a firm. So it kind of moves. But our guys would be at 10% of, so not total, they get their salary.
10% of your commission?
Yeah, 10%. 10% of our commission, whether that's 10, 15, 2.5%. And so that's how they're set up. And it works really well. But we offer a lot more benefit than just salary commission. They're also getting free health insurance where the company pays that, 401k, certain number of like PTO hours. We give like 3 weeks a year. So we have a lot of benefit that ties in with that. And we have a really high retention rate. I was talking about something else that we implemented, a program called teaming, which implements DISC assessments. So everybody on my team has a DISC, and any meeting that we're in, we have teaming pulled up where we keep our notes. And then you can actually see how that person is different than you and how they receive feedback, how they take feedback, how to give them criticism. And it's been a really powerful tool for development of people in our firm.
Has that helped you in helping develop some people? I guess the claims coach probably does a little bit more with that DISC assessment than you do.
So our claims coach actually, he's like an eye, really introspective on the DISC assessment. And so it's really helped me a lot. I'm a pretty firm D on the DISC assessment. And it's so
what now? You're a what?
It's a D. So it's very, very.
I'd be an A.
Probably.
It just sounds like a slightly higher than average grade. That's all I'm saying.
A+, man.
A+, baby. What is a B?
I don't know if there is a B.
Didn't you say you were a B?
No, a D.
Oh, I heard you were wrong to begin with. D for Delta. All right, you were a D.
Yeah,
That's way worse.
so very direct and like on like hyper focused onto the next topic kind of thing. So for me, it's been really helpful on kind of slowing down and if I'm going to work with this person, changing the way that I'm developing to fit that person. And actually had a really interesting, I don't know if we're going to hit time or whatever, but I had an interesting, I was working with it was just an employee. And I kept asking, well, why do you say that? Well, why do you say that? Well, what do you think? Well, give me an answer. What do you think? It was like a question of, and in my mind, I'm like, oh, cool. Like they want to know, if somebody asked me, I'm like, well, this is what I think, and that person told me they didn't like that and they didn't learn that way. So I brought that to, it was actually a huge learning point for me. I brought that to Sam, was like, hey, like, this doesn't make sense. This person, they're just not getting it, and they said like, hey, I don't learn that way. I'm like, well, I need to know like the answer. Like, I'm not asking you because I, am trying to like belittle. I'm trying to get you to think, and the response that we got or that I got from Sam was, well, if that person tells you they don't learn that way, maybe you should listen. Which I would agree with, so for me saying like, well, what do you think? Give me an answer, and trying to facilitate thought, it was just the wrong approach. And so I got that from the DISC assessment chart, and implementing that with every employee in it. It was really, it's probably one of the most important things that we do with culture in our company.
There's several different ones. There's, I've done this on like 5 or 6 different ones at this point, but there's a culture index. There's this SDI thing, strength deployment inventory. I don't know if that's the same thing.
We did a CRG.
Anagram reports. Are these all roughly the same thing?
They're all really different. They tell you the similar stuff. We've done other ones that we didn't reap as much benefit from. We did like a CRG assessment, and we were actually using those for interviews. And we hired a guy that scored an awesome, really great on this CRG assessment. And we strongly disagreed with it with the specific things that we're
you can lie on these things with your answers pretty easily.
Well, kind of. The CRG was like picking out like shapes and what fits. It was a pretty crazy test, but yeah. So we really like teaming and the DISC assessment. I've heard other ones that are really great, and I haven't tried them all by any means. Yeah,
but DISC work for you.
Yep.
I'll have to take a look at that myself. All right, I got one last question for you. For a lot of PA firms, including my own, the way that we expanded into another state was there was a major event that occurred, and we went and we dealt with that major event. And then we left a team behind or built a team while we were there for that event. And that's how we expanded into that region or that state. Is this at all like the model that you do?
No, it's not. So we've built out a really awesome contractor network, is what I would call it. So our thought process on that is when contractors enter our ecosystem, we just don't ever want them to leave. So we've built out a really awesome like value pipeline. It's a lot of energy that goes into this to keep them in our ecosystem, and a lot of our referrals or introductions come from contractors in these states. So we send out a lot of value, whether that's webinars on, commercial roof systems, how to inspect, what is wear and tear versus, insurable loss, and what are these systems made of, that kind of thing. So we have, pre-recorded webinars, stuff like that we'll send out. We try to host like coachings with all of these. We send out, we actually put together these really awesome binders that are like supplement binders that we send out to contractors, and there's a spend there. And then we also have tools that we've had made We have angled rulers, which you may have seen on Facebook. We also had
you probably stole those from TJ Ware. So.
yeah. And then we also had, we kept running into this problem with engineers where the engineer would say that the fasteners on wind damaged shingles were overdriven or underdriven, but there was no data to support that. So we basically kept asking, well, like, how did you determine that? So we actually made a tool to measure the depth of the fastener. That it helps with the argument of if they're overdriven or underdriven. So we made like a plunge dial tool for those. So we give those out too. And so that's what we do.
I'm really curious about this thing. That's a tool I've never even considered. So if it's overdriven, a lot of times, especially in an asphalt shingle, it'll be a perfect circle hole. And you can tell by the shape of I swear to God, I think someone's trying to break into my house. Hang on one second.
Yeah. So plunge dial tool.
Oh, shit. No, I just got a huge delivery.
Nice.
That explains that. So if it's a perfect circle, then it's usually a blow through because that's what's created. And if it's ripped up off of a nail, then it's torn. It's got this jagged hole. You're talking about maybe the end of like a caliper or something where it's got a little plunger to measure the depth, almost like something that, I don't know if you guys can see the plunger portion of this.
Yeah, I'll post
deeper.
I'll send you a picture of one. You can post it if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different, way different from that. But it's yeah.
I'm very curious about that. I'm a gearhead, so I'm very excited. You got to send that to me. I'm very curious. Sweet. So we learned a lot. We talked about all the different things that Hope is doing. It's a little bit different. I don't think we talked about all of them because we only had 1 hour, and Hope is doing a lot of different things. We didn't even get into automation. We didn't get into any of the real software stuff that you're doing, which is really personally what I think is what's making you guys a little bit more successful is you've got the processes down and the automation down to be able to do a lot of these things autonomously to an extent, which I'd love to bring you back on at some point. I've really enjoyed today's show. So let me bring you back on at some point. We'll talk about a lot of that stuff. And then we will also look at your little plunge tool. I'm sorry I called it little. It's probably average.
It's
your
pretty
average
small.
plunge tool. Yeah, pretty small. All right. If you guys get a lot out of this show, please consider going to listentothisbull.com and buying a t-shirt. This is how we get paid at this point. We're also looking for sponsors. If you are a company that watches the show or getting a lot out of this and you know of a company that would be interested in being a sponsor for the show, Listen to This Bull, please reach out to me. My email address is Matthew, spelled with only one T, at listentothisbull.com. And I appreciate you guys. I'll see you next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for being on the show, Cole. This was fun. Stay in the wings after I close it out. I'll see you guys next week. Hopefully Remington, who's currently experiencing his own water loss, can be on the show. I'll see you guys later.